This computer. Okay, we're ready to go. So my name is Timoteo, and I'm a LightNet collaborator. I'm here today and I'm interviewing Coffee Rain. Thank you very much for coming. It's great to have you. And we're going to be doing a wonderful interview about something that's very special. Everybody says, or at least our teachers at LightNet say that everybody can do it, and that's the big idea, right?
Yep. Yep.
What we're trying to do is we're gonna interview you about this spoon bending power. That's telekinesis, right? I would say telekinesis. Why
Yes.
would you say it belongs to this area?
I say spoon bending belongs to telekinesis because what we're actually doing is we're using our minds to kind of bend these spoons. And it's like, we have a certain percentage of it that is physical force, but the rest of it we do with our minds. And that's why we call it telekinesis. Because well, there's like several different ways, how do you call it? Let's see, levels that we can get into later, and one of them is purely with the mind. So
Okay, so good, because I have a lot of questions about that. I know we only have 15 minutes, but I think I'm gonna get the opportunity to ask you a couple more that I think are very important, especially because I'm starting too, and I feel like really excited. I mean, that's like in the Bible it says that, give me faith where it is needed. And so if I think I can bend that spoon, I'm going to be able to do so many things. And that's one of the ideas that I love about LightNet. And it's that once we interview 100 people and we create a sort of a mind iCloud where everybody's going to be able to access, and their belief is going to grow so strong, and they're going to, everything's going to start happening faster. I think that's the idea, right?
oh yeah, for certain. Yeah.
So, the first question I would like to ask you is, what is the thing that attracted you most to this telekinesis art about bending spoons?
So specifically, it was actually a crazy happenstance because I had never even considered or known about spoon bending. Growing up, I never even watched The Matrix. So this was not something that was in my field at all. But I had recently had a spiritual awakening, and I was attending a the Conscious Life Expo like probably 2 years ago at this point. I had just come from one of Bashar's talks with one of my friends. Her name is Angela, and she heard about spoon bending being put on by Zanka Caro. So the lady that literally is the founder of the place I work now. And we went to this event. We went to her booth. She had this giant like poster next to her table, and she was fretting about the spoon bending not being advertised by her room. So she pointed out me and Angela, and she's like, "Can you guys please take this to the room?" She didn't even know us, and we're like, "Oh yeah, sure." So we're helping her bring this thing, and we get into the spoon bending class, and I just think it's like the most fascinating thing that we're going to use our minds to perform telekinesis on something that's metal, something that is supposed to not be bendable, and yeah, I'd throw myself into it because it's this new experience. I've never heard about it before. And the way she was speaking, she was explaining it how anyone can do spoon bending at any stage. And if you're new, that's even better because you have no perception around it. So it's like easier. And I had no doubts after she gave her little spiel. And then we went right into the spoon bending and I performed.
So I have this question that's been like since I went to the last spoon bending party, and Zenka. Well, I remember the first party I went to was with you, and you talk a lot about the mind, but it seems that you're like there's a lot of emotion there because everybody gets really excited, and and that's what is the point of talking about it's a mind thing when it's really there's a lot of emotion behind it.
So I think personally, I guess how I refer to it in my own head, I like to associate the emotion aspect of it as both a mind aspect and an emotional aspect, because I believe that our emotions, they're created in our body. So when I'm talking about the mind, I'm talking about creating emotions with the mind and creating emotions with the body as well. I don't see there being a huge separation, but that's just in my own perspective of it, if that makes sense.
But it makes sense. It's just that there's, everybody talks about how to differentiate, the emotional part, but I see there's a lot of emotion there. And in fact, the second question I wanted to ask you is this, what did you feel? What happened the first time you bent a spoon?
Oh my gosh. So the first time I ever bent a spoon, I was buzzing. I was in the room filled with all these other people who some of them had had experience before, and some of them were just as new as I was. And it was just this pure excitement coursing through me at the fact that this was so weird and out there. And when I was in the moment and really trying to create chaos in my body, because that's another thing that she really tells you to bring forth, is you want to get out of your thinking mind. So it is like very emotional in the aspect that you're not trying to be logical in that moment. You're trying to just be crazy. And I feel like that's something that I've worked on, kind of almost coming up to this point as well in my life, is being a level of delusional that can help me get optimistically into places that a more logical, toned down expression of someone towards the world might not be able to get them there. Because one of my life goals and one of my current pursuits right now is also levitation. And you've got to be kind of crazy to research levitation and to think that that's possible and believe that that's possible. And by my belief, I've been able to meet tons of people at this point who have also levitated, be it spontaneously or on command. And so when I was in that moment, I was super excited. It felt like all of the cells in my body were just like buzzing, and it's a very visceral feeling. And then this was one of the first spoons that I was able to bend, and it actually just snapped in half.
Wow. It's incredible.
And it's really like thick. You can see that too.
It is, was it hot at a point, or it just popped off and just cracked off? Was it hot? I mean,
It
hot or
It
something?
did get hot. It got warm. It didn't get like burning hot, but it got warm. I bent it one way, and then when I went to bend it the other way, it just snapped totally off.
So what you're really doing is you're affecting the molecules of the metal. You're working like you're saying, you're working from the mind with but there's an emotional aspect behind that. But what we're trying to do is, I mean, I wanted to say this because most weapons are made of metal. So if we get to bend all those weapons, they would not be used. So it's a good analogy in that sense. So, um, what is how do you feel? What do you do? I mean, what is it when you do telekinesis? Have you been able to do it, apply it to other things as well?
That's very interesting because I like the idea that we're like we could trying to be training magnetos, you know what I mean? Like people to be able to bend metal in different ways and affect like weapons to have them not go off in opposed to like it's yeah, that would be very interesting. But the only couple of more times that I've tried this has been with the help of one of my very esoteric friends, but he's actually more even scientific than esoteric. He's like a perfect balance of both. His name is Adam, and he is Zenka's partner. Uh, but he encourages me to kind of open my mind in places that I wouldn't have thought before. So we were, sitting at some driveway once or twice, and he'd just point to something metal out in our surrounding and be like, "Bend that." I'm like, "Huh, okay." And so I'd with my mind, as we're sitting in the car, just focus my attention on that. And we're playing games. You know what I mean? None of this is to be taken super seriously. We're just trying to see, and with like in a, I guess, air of playfulness, what we can do and how we can push the bounds in our everyday life. And so I would look at, some kind of street pole, and I would really imagine bending it. It should not be possible, right? That's like the idea. It's so crazy. It's so out there. But as I do, maybe there's a breeze that comes by and pushes it kind of. And then boom, that's like a belief that's like can be cemented in my head. It's like maybe I had an effect on the wind that bent it that way. So I try to never count anything out, and I like everything to kind of feed my delusion. I wear these rose colored glasses, and it just helps me have this perspective on life that makes everything around me so much more magical. And then I like that my excitement can also influence the other people's excitement around me.
That's really interesting what you're saying because when you use the word playfulness, it something comes to my mind in the sense that when we become like children again, we might be able to perform all these sorts of miraculous things or things that might be called miraculous. You know, I also remember the movie. You remember when Yoda told Luke Skywalker it's not this size when he was trying to lift the spaceship. He could lift that ball or whatever it was. He could move it around. But when it came to lifting the spaceship, and Yoda said, the size is not important. It was something that went beyond that, right? So if we're going to talk about playfulness and we're going to be like children, how would you explain bending spoons to a child to make it as
Hmm.
possible?
Okay. Wow. I Let me think about this for a second, actually. Okay. So if I was coming to a child to explain a spoon bending game, because I would preface it as a game,
But
I
I
would say,
think Zen can
okay,
do that as well, also because they're like you say, they start from this playfulness and environment. You know, you get happy in. You can see how Zenka gets all excited. Adam's there smiling, and you were in the first class. You were very not only emotional. Playfulness is carried with the emotion, right? So
yeah,
how do you get how would you get children to understand this?
yes. So I would definitely start by phrasing it as a game. So I would probably go up to the said child and be like, hey, so we're going to play a spoon bending game. And in this game, I am going to give you magical powers. And I would start by saying that. So I'm giving them magical powers. So in their mind, okay, in this game, I have magical powers. These magical powers are going to let you bend this spoon. So as I'm saying bend, we're going to scream bend out at the spoon. And then we're going to focus all of our magical powers into the spoon right where we want to bend it, and then we're going to test it. And as soon as we get it, we're going to scream it and we're going to be so excited. And probably I would say something like that.
Is that the way it happened to you when you first bent your first spoon?
I kind of feel like that's how it happened to me. That was not the words she used, but that's how it felt in my head. That's how it translated.
Nice. So I have one last question for you. It might be accompanied by another surprise question if you don't mind. Okay.
Sure.
So, what advice from the mind and from the emotional aspect would you give someone who is trying to looking to perform telekinesis?
Hmm.
Because we all have to overcome that. I don't know if it's the left brain or the right brain, but we have to overcome that left hemisphere that limits us in a way. And it's a process because what is the aspect also of letting go and just letting it happening and things like that? Because it's talked about a lot in this area.
Yeah, so I think that probably the best advice I can give, just from my point of view specifically, is when you're approaching something new like this, do not place any of your previous belief systems onto this current event. Pretend like it's something that you have absolutely no idea about, so assign nothing to it. Don't assign any assumptions to it when you're approaching this. Just pretend like it is totally new, and whatever this person or guide tells you is absolute. And that is what really helped me, I think, the most is knowing that they knew what they were talking about and being able to let go of all of my previous assumptions that I've had surrounding telekinesis or these like psychic spiritual powers, etc.
Hmm. That's it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I can go on. There's so many. But like probably another one is definitely be in playfulness. So be in that energy of this isn't serious. It's not something like if you don't get it, your world is gonna come down. It's really just an experience that you can have. So try not to assign so much importance to it if you do get it or you don't end up getting it.
So the last question is, do we sometimes let the ego get in the way?
I think as far as the ego goes, I'm sure when I think of the ego, I think of it more as something that we're using to navigate through life. So it's like our human perspective. And in that sense, yes, I think sometimes our human perspectives can get in the way of how we'd be experiencing new experiences. So if you can get out of that, I guess probably negative self-talk and stuff that goes in your mind, like that mind chatter, self doubt, all that kind of stuff, having to do, I guess, probably with the ego, then that would be something you would need to temporarily learn how to step aside from. Like, okay, thank you for that. I know you're trying to keep me safe and you're trying to keep me skeptical about these things, but let's both agree to have fun tonight and just see where this goes. Because, like I said, it's not serious. It's not like I'm adopting a new religion right now. We're just playing a game.
Wonderful. Coffee
Yeah.
Rain, I really appreciate your time. I'm really thankful for your time, and thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your experiences and your experience, because I know you're there and you're in and all your classes are wonderful. I've assisted many of them, and really want to say thank you. I'm from Spain. Even though schedules, are a bit crazy sometimes, I try to join as much as possible. Thank you very much, Coffee, for your time. And that's the idea of LightNet: get everybody to believe in something that they didn't believe before, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim. This was amazing. I really had a lot of fun with this, and you're a great interviewer. So
Thank you very much. This is my first interview, so I really appreciate your patience. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.
amazing.